Smith was the president of the group. He drove all the way over, he and his wife from Callicoon. But later I also met Chuck because Chuck was involved in an action at Hancock Drone Base, and we drove back and forth to court on a couple of occasions. He had his motorcycle, left it over at a restaurant on 81, and I would drive him up to Syracuse and back, and then he would take off through the wilds at nighttime, the back roads to Callicoon. Chuck went to Vietnam as I believe he was drafted, he can tell you better than I, but he became a combat medic and was in some very difficult situations. So much so that he told me when he came back home, he couldn't go home. Came to California, got his discharge, got himself a backpack, and he hiked for 6 months in the Sierra Nevada. I think it probably did a world of good for him because Chuck is just such an interesting guy, a professional carpenter who I hear is just a master carpenter. But thanks, Chuck, for coming today, and if you can say a few words for us, that would be very nice. Here's Chuck back here. I'll hold your flag. Okay, your wife will.
Good afternoon. Y'all look so great out there. Well, I guess you heard the beginnings.
Put the mic up.
You sort of heard the beginnings of my journey. I was drafted, spent 15 months in Vietnam as a combat medic. Witnessed a lot of the effects that war has on a population of people that I knew nothing about. And I can only say that I returned from that experience with my humanity still in place. I did not look at the Vietnamese people in the way that we were led to look at them through my military training before going. I just couldn't think of them as someone that was beneath myself and deserving to be killed and mutilated and their land destroyed in the name of, well, what I was taught was our freedom here in this country. It began to not make sense to me while I was there, and once returning back home, I felt like I did not belong. I couldn't any longer have the same sense of what direction I was going in. Before going, I graduated college and got a great job and was drafted 2 weeks later, and didn't really experience what I thought was going to be the rest of my life. So it took a while to readjust, and as Jack said, I ended up going to the wild and just trying to figure that out. I hiked the entire coastline of Northern California to Oregon, and over the course of weeks spent every night on the bluffs looking out over the Pacific Ocean, knowing what was going on still to my guys in Vietnam. It wasn't, it didn't come to me. I didn't have any answers. I didn't find those answers. And through a kind of a failed attempt at suicide, I came out of that with I don't know quite why it happened, but I was in a place where I was listening to the speech that Dr. Martin Luther King gave in April of 1967 in New York. And that speech just resonated with me. It was the first time that I heard someone speak about what I had witnessed in a way that made sense. It it gave me something to build on and continue my life. And I thank him and will thank him for the rest of my life for that. And so so that began my thinking in a different way, that what I had grown up to understand maybe wasn't quite what it was really. But I did learn that going to war is a decision that's made for reasons that are camouflaged in the glorification of war. And as Jack alluded to, we veterans have become part of that instrument. And it's a fine line for us veterans to come to realize that the loss of our guys was perhaps solely in vain. And to expect a veteran to flip somehow and think otherwise, or to think that that's the case, that's a lot to ask. It's not easy. It takes years, did for me anyway, to realize that. And it's still an issue with me about thinking that veterans should speak up and come forward more than they do. I decided that that's what I should do, and that's why I'm here, and I'm glad to be here. My family has been my safety net, and along with other veterans that I've joined forces with and guys that I've looked up after Vietnam, and it's something that's carried me forth. And the major point that I would like to stress is that these decisions about war are made, and they're made incrementally, and before you know it, you're in it. And somehow we have to figure this out so that we can preempt those things that create the situation in which we feel that we need to go to war. And everything that Veterans for Peace does related to the economics of war, the environmental damage, the injustice, all of the various things that happen within this country and the street life, all add to why it's easy for us to decide to go to war. And I would like to make it just the reverse. I would like to make it easier to think about other methods, diplomacy, and the fact that war has not gotten us anything except those who have been in the midst of it have suffered, and their families as well. And so I would like to just leave you with the fact that it's decisions that we have to make, and I think we can do it. I've come to realize that, I don't know when it was along the way of working with Veterans for Peace, that I finally decided that it was really possible to do away with the need for war. Now, we obviously still have to have armies or police forces, that sort of thing, and I don't have any problem with that. But the decision about war is one that should not be made so easily. And let's work towards making that a little more difficult. Thank you.